Prince Harry's court defeat has created one kind of crisis for the Sussexes, but Meghan Markle's response to it may reveal an even deeper problem. While Harry was absorbing the fallout from a humiliating legal loss against Associated Newspapers, Meghan's lifestyle brand appeared to continue pushing out its carefully styled seasonal messaging. And that contrast has become impossible to ignore. On one side, Harry was dealing with a judgment that damaged his credibility, raised questions about his legal strategy, and left commentators asking whether his war with the British press had finally collapsed. On the other side, Meghan's brand was still trying to sell sweetness, domestic ease, jam, bread, honey, rose, and the soft-focus world of aspirational California living. The problem is that the two images no longer fit together. There is nothing calm, warm, or sweet about the Sussex story right now. The atmosphere around them is tense, Harry is under pressure, Meghan's business ventures are being mocked. Their royal links are being re-examined. Their marriage is being discussed by commentators in a way that suggests uncertainty rather than stability. And every attempt to pivot toward lifestyle branding seems to run straight into the same old problem. The Sussexes' strongest currency is still the royal family. That is why Meghan's brand matters to this story. The discussion around her business, as ever.
That's what Lady Colin Campbell calls her failing lifestyle brand. And I just was like, are you serious? Like, there's nothing sweet about this season for your family. And there does seem to be quite a dramatic unraveling of this business. I mean, Nancy Sidley posted, I think we can officially call it, as ever, the time of death, July the 4th, 2026.
Was brutal. Critics compared a more polished Independence Day style launch from the previous year with a far less impressive looking piece of sourdough in 2026. The point was not really the bread, it was symbolism. A lifestyle brand depends on beauty, consistency, desire, and confidence. It needs the audience to believe in the world being sold. If the presentation starts looking weak, rushed, or uninspired, the illusion breaks. That is what critics think is happening. Meghan was supposed to build something independent, a brand that did not need Buckingham Palace, royal drama, or the endless recycling of grievance. But if that brand is faltering, then the question becomes obvious. Does Meghan now need the royal connection again? Charlotte Griffiths, whose role in Harry's Daily Mail case made her one of the most talked about royal journalists of the moment, suggested that Meghan understands where the remaining currency lies. If Meghan cannot fully re-enter the royal world, then the next closest source of symbolic value is Diana and the Spencer family. That is why the possibility of Meghan going to Althorp or being associated with Diana's siblings becomes so interesting. In the Sussex economy, Diana remains powerful. For Harry, Diana is personal history, trauma, love, and loss. For Meghan, Diana is also symbolic capital.
I don't know about you, Charlotte. I don't even want to eat that. Like, seriously. And so this business seems to be in a great deal of trouble. Do you think that is why she has been at least open to the idea of some type of reconciliation with the British royal family?
Oh, I think so. I think she's well aware that the currency remains in some sort of association with the British royal family, with Diana. I do think she's coming to Althorp during...
That does not mean every Diana-related move is cynical. Harry may genuinely want his children to understand their grandmother's memory. Meghan may genuinely respect what Diana represented. But in the public imagination, anything involving Diana, Althorp, the Spencer family, Archie, Lilibet, and cameras immediately becomes loaded. Because the Sussexes have spent years turning private pain into public narrative, the public now asks whether even emotional family moments might become useful later. That is the reputational cost of their media strategy. The possibility of Meghan returning to Britain, or at least returning to the edge of royal life through the Spencers, is especially striking because she once appeared determined never to come back. According to the discussion, Meghan had previously indicated through Omid Scobie that she would not return to England after her final official royal engagement at Buckingham Palace. Of course, she did return for Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, but that was an extraordinary and unavoidable moment in history. The broader point remains. Meghan seemed to have closed the door on Britain. So what changed? Critics argue that the answer is simple. The brand changed. The American glamour has faded. The commercial deals are not as electric as they once were. The lifestyle venture is struggling to convince everyone. The royal grievance model has been overused. And now, with Harry wounded by court defeat, the Sussexes may need fresh royal association more than ever.
Trip, and I have to say I'm pretty skeptical about the reasons why. Of course she wants to remember Harry's mother, but if she can't get to the royal family, it feels like she wants to get at least to the Spencers and Diana's sisters, and be seen maybe going in and out of Althorp, or be able to report that she has done, because that's the closest she can get to any kind of currency. And she spent her currency over in the States.
That is where Project Thor enters the story. Project Thor was the nickname used in the source discussion for the idea that there may have been some behind-the-scenes push to bring Harry closer to the royal fold again. Not necessarily a full return as a working royal, but some form of partial rehabilitation, some kind of managed re-entry, or at least a path toward public contact with the family. Charlotte Griffiths had reported on meetings and signals suggesting that something was happening beneath the surface. Her reporting became controversial because at the same time, Harry was involved in legal action against associated newspapers. Some people could not understand why Harry's circle would brief a journalist from the very newspaper group he was fighting in court. But Charlotte's answer was simple. A story is a story. That is an important point. Journalists do not exist to help one side or another manage its moral contradictions. If a story lands, a reporter reports it. If Harry's friends, sources, or wider circle speak to a journalist, that is itself part of the story. It reveals that Harry's world is not as separate from the press as he likes to suggest. That is one of the great contradictions of the Sussex story. Harry claims to hate the press, Meghan claims to want privacy, yet the Sussex ecosystem...
Afraid it's the second one. You must be able to imagine, Dan, when a story like that drops in your lap, what are you going to do? Not run the story? We're a tabloid newspaper. I was nominated for Scoop of the Year for that story. A story is a story. And yes, I did dabble in Project Thor for a while. And then I passed the baton on to all the rest of Fleet Street because I realized it was the briefings and counter briefings.
Constantly produces briefings, leaks, friendly features, strategic appearances, and carefully timed narratives. The media is condemned when it is hostile, but used when it is useful. That is why the Daily Mail case matters so much. Harry tried to portray parts of the press as acting unlawfully, yet at the same time, stories favorable to him or relevant to his goals were moving through journalists. Charlotte Griffiths has said she has had strong Harry sources going back years. That is exactly how royal journalism works, through contacts, relationships, trust, old social circles, and people talking. Harry may dislike that system, but he has also lived inside it. Project Thor may now be dead, or at least badly wounded. Even if there was a moment when some kind of royal rapprochement seemed possible, Harry's recent behaviour has made it far harder. The Buckingham Palace accommodation row raised questions about trust and logistics. His comments after losing the court case, particularly his suggestion of a whitewash, made the situation worse. If Harry is publicly attacking or undermining a court judgment, it becomes much harder to imagine him smoothly returning to royal events connected to the king, the state, or the wider constitutional order. That is why the royal family appears divided on how to handle him. King Charles may still...
It all got very messy, but I was.
But you think it's on? You think it is happening? There is some type of establishment push to find a way for Prince Harry to return, not necessarily full-time, but in some type of role. I mean, we've even seen Boris Johnson pushing for it in the pages of the Daily Mail.
For a time last summer, I did think Project Thor is on. And then I was sort of proved right because he did turn up at Clarence's house. And then I've begun to think it's not going to happen, especially after the Buckingham Palace debacle. And now he's come out and been incredibly rude about Justice Nicklin. Well, how can he ever be a working member of the royal family?
Feel the pull of fatherhood. He may want to see his son. He may want to see his grandchildren. He may hope that time can soften the conflict. But Prince William appears to have a very different instinct. According to the discussion, there are repeated claims of tension between Charles and William over how to deal with difficult members of the family. Some deny those tensions, but Charlotte Griffiths said she hears them often from strong sources inside royal circles. The logic is easy to understand. Charles is the father, William is the future king. Charles may see Harry through memory, grief, and family love. William has to see him through the future of the institution. William has Prince George to think about. He has the next generation to protect. He has to inherit not only a crown, but a public structure that has been battered by scandals involving Harry, Meghan, and Prince Andrew. From William's perspective, the Sussex drama is not simply emotional. It is a long-term institutional risk. That is why he may want firmer boundaries. If Charles keeps the door too open, the unresolved Sussex issue continues overshadowing the working royals. If Harry is allowed to drift close to the royal fold without showing restraint, the family risks another cycle of briefing, pressure, and public drama. If Meghan and Harry are allowed to use proximity to the monarchy as a form of brand fuel,
I don't think it was as well thought through as that, quite honestly. Nothing ever is with Harry, but I suppose as you know, I've got great Harry sources, always have done, going back as far as 2011.
Yeah.
So, naturally information like that is quite likely to come to me. And it did in the first instance. And, I was proved right when it turns out he did have that meeting on that balcony. Why did he choose me given that we were going to court? I just don't think it had been thought through. Anyway, who was I to argue? I had a story, and that's what mattered.
The institution becomes part of their commercial story again. William cannot afford that, neither can Catherine. And this is where the contrast with the Prince and Princess of Wales becomes so powerful. At the same time, Harry and Meghan were surrounded by court defeats, lifestyle brand mockery, and speculation about royal re-entry. Catherine was appearing in public in a way that reminded people what quiet royal duty looks like. Her Three Peaks Challenge imagery, involving the children and the Middleton family, created an entirely different atmosphere. It felt warm, active, grounded, and unforced. Then came her appearance at Evelina London Children's Hospital, where the images again emphasized presence, kindness, and service. These moments arrived during the same period as Harry's chaotic return to the headlines, and the contrast was stark. It does not need to have been planned as a direct counterattack. In fact, it is more effective because it probably was not. Catherine's strategy appears to be simple. Keep calm, carry on, and be herself. After her own health struggles, especially her cancer treatment and recovery, the public has seen a woman trying to return to duty with steadiness and sincerity. She does not need to speak directly about Harry and Meghan. She does not need to brief against them. She does not need to answer every provocation. She simply shows up, and every time she does, the contrast sharpens.
I do wonder, since she didn't turn up at Chatham House with him yesterday, how good it can possibly be. If I was him, I'd be pretty angry with her for abandoning me in my time of need. I wouldn't expect that of my husband. I can't believe Meghan did that to him, really. So yeah, I have to wonder. I think when we'll find out is at the Invictus Games event later in the week, whether they're holding hands and doing their usual routine of kind of being arm in arm at every moment. I think, in honesty, it peaks and troughs. I suppose like a lot of marriages, but...
Catherine is associated with family stability, the Middletons, children's causes, outdoor resilience, quiet service, and a sense of continuity. Meghan, fairly or unfairly, is associated with brand launches, estrangement, media narratives, and a constant fight over image. The comparison is not always kind, but it is unavoidable. That is why William and Catherine may not need a public strategy against the Sussexes. Their best strategy is to keep building their own public trust. The York sisters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, form another complicated layer of this wider royal story. Their position has been made more difficult by the scandals surrounding their father, now Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. The source discussion touched on their past association with Jeffrey Epstein after his release from jail, the reputational shadow around the York family, and the question of how much sympathy the sisters should receive. It is a difficult subject. Beatrice and Eugenie did not create their father's scandals, but they have had to live inside the consequences. Their names, marriages, children, and public roles are all affected by the continuing fallout. At the same time, they are adults and public figures within the royal orbit, so their choices are also scrutinized. The sisters appear to be in different positions.
That's what I've heard over the years. But some of those relationships, they kind of thrive on that kind of argumentative, jeopardy. Is it over? Is it not over?
Yeah. There's like a toxicity.
I'm afraid that's what I think Harry's stuck in, a sort of toxic mess with Meghan.
Beatrice is often described as more eager to be accepted by the core royal family and more interested in public service. She has also had to navigate scrutiny around her marriage to Edoardo Mopelli-Mozzi. According to reporting discussed in the source, there have been questions among friends and observers about how much time Edo has spent overseas and how the Andrew scandal may affect his ultra-luxury property business. Banda, that business depends on wealthy clients, discretion, and reputation. Being connected to a royal family under scandal can be useful when the association is glamorous, but dangerous when the association becomes toxic. This is the same royal adjacent dilemma in miniature. The connection helps until it hurts. Beatrice, meanwhile, may be trying to hold together several fragile things at once. Her marriage, her relationship with her father, her desire to remain close to the royal family, and the public perception of her own children having access to their grandfather. None of that is easy. Eugenie is different. She has long been seen as closer to Harry and Meghan. The discussion suggested she may still be more sympathetic to the Sussexes than Beatrice is, and noted reports or rumours connecting Meghan's possible presence in Portugal with Eugenie's husband, Jack Brooksbank, and his business interests there.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. And I have heard of tensions. A lot of people deny this, but I've heard of tensions between Charles and William.
Oh,
and I'm
big
sure
time. Big time.
Yeah, big time. But then some people come out and say Charlotte Griffiths is absolutely wrong. But I just hear it time and time again from excellent sources, and not just the young, but actually older members of the royal circle, concerned kind of elders, as it were, have said that there's tensions between them. And, it makes me very sad, because I'm sure the tension must be William wanting to cut off certain members of the family and move on, because he's got to inherit this.
There has also been speculation that the Sussexes' reported Portugal property may have some connection to that wider circle. Again, much of this sits in the realm of royal reporting and informed speculation rather than hard public fact. But the perception matters. If Eugenie is seen as Team Sussex, that may create distance with William. The source discussion referred to moments where William appeared cool toward her, including a Christmas walk where observers read body language as distant. Whether or not every interpretation is fair, the broader picture is clear. Harry and Meghan's conflict has not remained contained to Harry and Meghan. It has created lines of tension across the family. Charles and William, William and Eugenie, Beatrice and the wider York fallout, Camilla and Harry, Catherine and Meghan by contrast, Andrew's scandal and the future of royal public service. This is why the monarchy may feel exhausted by the Sussex issue. It is never just one story. It spreads. A court case becomes a question about journalism. A lifestyle email becomes a question about Meghan's brand. A possible trip to Althorpe becomes a question about Diana's legacy. A briefing about reconciliation becomes a question about Harry's sources. A marriage rumour becomes a question about Sussex survival. A Princess of Wales appearance becomes a contrast with Meghan.
His son George, and he may well be feeling extremely protective of George, who's about to start Eton. When he leaves Eton, he'll start being a proper working royal, and then he'll one day inherit the throne. And the last thing you want is this Harry and Meghan sideshow, not to mention Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew. And I'm sure that must be a source of great frustration between him and Charles. And how sad, really, that Harry has come between these two great men, the former Prince of Wales and the current Prince of Wales. They should be going through an amazing sort of handover process now, kind of, father and son.
A York sister's friendship becomes a question about Team Sussex. A Prince Andrew scandal becomes a debate about whether Beatrice and Eugenie should ever have public roles. Everything connects. And at the centre of it all is the same unresolved problem. The monarchy has not fully settled what to do with semi-detached royals. Harry and Meghan are not working royals. Andrew is no longer a working royal. Beatrice and Eugenie are not full-time working royals. Yet all remain royal enough to draw attention, create headlines, and affect the family brand. William seems to understand that this is a long-term risk. Charles may understand it too, but as a father and brother, he finds the emotional side harder. That is the generational difference. Charles inherited a family full of unresolved complications. William wants to inherit a smaller, cleaner, more disciplined institution. George will one day inherit whatever is left after that. So when William looks at Harry and Meghan, he may not see merely his brother and sister-in-law. He may see a warning about what happens when royal identity is allowed to become a private media brand. That is why the stakes are so high. Charlotte Griffiths herself has become a symbol of the clash between Harry and the press. Harry's side accused journalists of serious misconduct. Charlotte's messages and testimony became important in defending her work and reputation.
I don't think Beatrice is. It's so complicated, isn't it? Because Beatrice is friends with Piers Morgan and is desperate to be on Team Royal and is the one out of the two of them that's always wanted to be a working royal more than Eugenie. But yet, I think Beatrice cops a little bit more of the flack for the Epstein Association because she is that little bit older, but also she accepted the necklaces, the 18th birthday parties. She was the one that walked her father into Newsnight, told him how marvellous he was. So I think that...
She said she did not want to betray private social circles, but that the messages had to come out because she had been accused of phone hacking. That is a human part of the story too. Journalists are often spoken about as if they are faceless. But when a prince alleges unlawful behavior, real people are placed under suspicion. Careers, reputations, families, and livelihoods are affected. If the allegations are true, that scrutiny is justified. If they are not proven, then the accusation itself becomes harmful. Charlotte's point was that she had to defend herself. That is why the Daily Mail's victory felt so significant inside the newsroom. According to the discussion, there was relief, camaraderie, and a sense that people could get on with their lives again. The journalists involved felt supported by the organization and saw the judgment as vindication of lawful reporting. This is the part Harry often seems unable to process. He sees journalists as part of a hostile machine. But many journalists see themselves as trained professionals doing difficult work, calling sources, checking stories, holding power to account, and sometimes exposing things public figures would rather hide. They do not see criticism of Harry and Meghan as hatred. They see it as reporting and commentary. That difference matters. Harry and Meghan often use the language of harm and hate.
With the kids while Harry's in London on his own. And I find that very interesting because it must mean that they're somewhere near Princess Eugenie's husband's business. He runs this kind of villa company over there. And the rumour has always been on Fleet Street that the house that Meghan and Harry reportedly own in Portugal was somehow arranged by Jack Brooksbank. And I do also, when Eugenie found out she was pregnant, and then the king later found out, and Eugenie got a letter from the king. Apparently Eugenie was really surprised about that because I'm guessing...
Describe criticism. But in a democratic society, public figures have to tolerate scrutiny. If they say one thing and do another, the press can point it out. If Meghan speaks about family values while estranged from parts of her own family, that contrast can be discussed. If Harry attacks the press while relying on media attention, that contradiction can be examined. If the Sussexes present themselves as private while releasing personal material, that can be questioned. That is not automatically hate. It is accountability. And accountability cannot only run in one direction. Harry wants the press held accountable. Fair enough. But Harry must also be accountable for failed legal claims, public contradictions, private briefings, and the consequences of his own strategy. Meghan wants control over her image. Understandable. But she must also accept that a public lifestyle brand will be judged by the public. The Sussexes cannot have global influence without global scrutiny. That is the bargain. The marriage question remains the most personal and therefore the most delicate. Charlotte Griffiths speculated that Harry and Meghan's relationship may have extreme highs and lows, and that some relationships thrive on conflict or dramatic emotional intensity. She also questioned Meghan's absence from certain Harry appearances.
Well, I feel really sorry for Beatrice because Edo, again, in her time of need in January, mid-Epstein drama, he went off to America, I think for 2 or 3 weeks in total, posted loads of pictures, completely oblivious to the fact that, of course, the world would be looking at these pictures of him having a carefree time. He was having a glass of rosé with his colleague. He was taking lovely strolls around in Florida. And all the while, Beatrice was right in the absolute thick of it with the Epstein drama in January. So I feel really sorry for her, but it still had to be pointed.
Suggesting that if she were in Harry's position, she would feel abandoned in a time of need. No one outside the marriage knows what really happens behind closed doors. But public optics matter. When Harry is facing one of the worst weeks of his public life and Meghan is absent, people talk. When Meghan's brand messaging continues while Harry is under fire, people notice. When the couple's public image depends on hand-holding and visible unity, any absence becomes meaningful. This is the burden they created for themselves. They trained the public to read their body language, their timing, their appearances, their silences, and their emotional choreography. Now, the public does exactly that. If Meghan appears beside Harry at Invictus, commentators ask whether she is protecting the brand. If she stays away, they ask whether there is tension. If she goes to Portugal, they ask whether she is avoiding Britain. If she goes to Althorp, they ask whether she is seeking Diana currency. If she does nothing, they ask why her lifestyle brand is continuing while Harry is exposed. There is no easy move because the larger strategy has become too tangled. The same is true for Harry. If he pushes reconciliation, he looks like he needs the royal family again. If he attacks the system, he makes reconciliation harder.
Well, he said pretty much he's got to be the leader of his family now. There won't be any other money coming in. He almost acknowledged, really, reading between the lines, that the Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor drama meant that he was going to have to bring home the bacon from now on. And so he was concentrating on his business. But I do hear these persistent rumours that Beatrice finds Edo a little bit difficult to manage sometimes. A lot of their friends say things like, oh, he's Italian. And it was so interesting how many different sources I had that weren't necessarily linked to one another.
If he uses friendly media, he looks hypocritical. If he avoids the press, he loses visibility. If he brings Meghan and the children closer to the royal story, critics say he is using them. If he does not, he looks isolated. This is what happens when a public brand is built on contradiction. The Sussexes once seemed to have momentum. They had global sympathy, American media interest, major deals, and the promise of a new life. But the past few years have shown how difficult it is to build a future when the most marketable product remains the past. Meghan's lifestyle brand was supposed to answer that problem. It was supposed to create a new lane, softer, calmer, more domestic, less tied to royal warfare. But if the brand is mocked, if the products fail to generate excitement, and if royal association remains the only reliable source of attention, then the project has not solved the problem. It has simply exposed it. Harry's court defeat exposed the same thing from another angle. His anti-press crusade was supposed to define him as a man of principle. Instead, after the loss, it has left him looking wounded, angry, and legally vulnerable. Meghan's brand was supposed to make the Sussexes look independent. Instead, critics see a couple still orbiting Diana, the Spencers, the King, and the royal family. That is why William and Catherine's calm presence is so damaging by comparison.
day that Edo went out and Beatrice didn't go out during that Saint-Tropez trip. I found it fascinating they even went to Saint-Tropez because, of course, there's a lot of attention on the Yorks and how flashy they are. And I would have thought, from a PR perspective, from an optics perspective, it was a really bad time to go to Saint-Tropez because it's the flashiest place. They went to the flashiest restaurant, Cinq on Cinq. But I think Beatrice is working very hard to keep that marriage together. I think Edo's possibly quite angry with his father-in-law and the situation, and has been worrying a little bit about his business Banda, because Banda, which is a property design, ultra luxury property design company.
They are not explaining, they are not selling, they are not constantly reframing, they are simply doing the work. Catherine climbs, visits hospitals, appears with warmth, and allows the images to speak. William continues preparing for kingship, protecting his family, and keeping distance from the Sussex drama. Their public life is not perfect, but it has coherence. Coherence is exactly what Harry and Meghan lack. The immediate future will depend on several things. Will Meghan come to Britain? Will she go to Portugal? Will she be seen around the Spencers? Will Harry continue seeking a path back toward royal proximity? Will the king soften? Will William harden the line? Will Eugenia remain a bridge? Will Beatrice move closer to the core family? Will the Daily Mail judgment change how aggressively journalists report on Harry and Meghan? The phrase that keeps returning is royal currency. That is what this is really about. Royal currency is not only money, it is access, symbolism, proximity, title, family association, history, and emotional power. Harry and Meghan left the working monarchy, but they did not leave royal currency behind. In fact, they carried it with them and used it to build a new life. That currency paid for interviews, it powered streaming deals, it made a memoir globally relevant, it turned ordinary family grievances into international news.
I think it's keep calm and carry on. And the best thing Catherine can do is just be herself, because every time she's herself, brave, doing the Three Peaks Challenge, warm, look at this lovely picture of her now. It's just such a contrast to Harry and Meghan. And I always remember that time, I think it's in the Netflix documentary, where Meghan is trying to go down a hill on a trek in California, and it's not a very steep hill. And she has to lie down and go down.
I played it. It was cruel, but I had to.
And, by contrast, Catherine's there, she's just recovered from cancer. She's done
It made Meghan's lifestyle projects interesting before the public even knew whether the products were good. It made every possible trip to Britain, every possible meeting with Charles, every possible appearance near Diana's family, and every possible relationship with Eugenie or Beatrice feel like part of a bigger story. But royal currency works only while the connection feels alive. If Harry and Meghan are too distant from the royal family, they become just another wealthy California couple with a complicated past. If they are too close, they risk being pulled back into the discipline and expectations they rejected. So they live in the middle, close enough to benefit from the connection, distant enough to claim independence, wounded enough to attract sympathy, and prominent enough to remain marketable. That middle space is becoming harder to occupy. The royal family has learned from experience. A meeting is not just a meeting. A private conversation is not just a private conversation. A birthday message is not just a birthday message. Every gesture can be interpreted, briefed, monetized, or turned into a headline. The palace, therefore, has to think not only about what is kind, but about what is safe for the institution. This is why William's caution may eventually define the future more than Charles's emotion. Charles can afford, personally, to hope for healing. William has to plan for what happens after healing fails. He has to think about the reign he will inherit.
And you're so right. That thing of having William's in-laws all around him, that lovely, warm Middleton family. Harry doesn't have really any in-laws. Of course, he's got Doria, who I know is a huge rock to them. But as we all know, there aren't any other in-laws. And I don't think it's contrived. I don't think Catherine's thinking, I'll go up this big hill because Meghan can't go down a very shallow ravine. I think that I just think their strategy is be yourself, keep calm, carry on. It's what we all do in England, especially the royals. And when Catherine is herself, it glows.
The public image of his children and the pressure that can come from semi-detached relatives who still have access to royal symbolism. For William, this is not only about Harry, it is about precedent. If Harry is allowed to drift back toward royal relevance, whenever the Sussex brand needs oxygen, then the monarchy never truly escapes the half-in, half-out problem. If Meghan can reject royal life and then reappear through Diana, the Spencers, Portugal, or carefully managed family proximity, whenever her own brand weakens, then the institution remains trapped inside someone else's publicity cycle. That is not sustainable. It is also not fair to the working royals. Catherine's public return after illness has been carefully paced, dignified, and emotionally resonant. She has not tried to compete with the Sussex drama. She has not needed to. Her appearances work because they feel connected to duty rather than self-promotion. When she appears with children, families, hospitals, outdoor challenges, and her own parents nearby, the message is not shouted. It is simply visible. Stability, continuity, and service. The contrast with Meghan is not only personal, it is structural. Catherine's role is clear. Meghan's role is not. Catherine's public image rests on the institution. Meghan's public image rests on
and just they go low, I go high. I mean, I might have to stick the boot in a little bit in my Daily Mail piece tomorrow, but essentially
I'm excited to read that.
But I'm not trying to be vindictive. I really do want to make the point tomorrow, and as I'm doing on your show, that these messages, I don't want to betray my friends and my private social circle. The messages had to come out because I was accused of phone hacking and prove my innocence. But
and look, you can't underestimate what he actually wanted, because yes, he wanted to finish off your career, but remember,
a rejection of the institution that still gives her status. Catherine's family reinforces her place inside royal life. Meghan's family story remains fragmented, with Doria as a supportive presence, but much of the wider Markle family estranged. Catherine does not need to remind people that she is connected to the monarchy. Meghan often seems to need the connection to remain commercially legible. That is why the simplest acts from Catherine can look stronger than the most carefully styled efforts from Meghan. A hospital visit, a walking challenge, a family photograph, or a quiet public appearance can carry more weight than a glossy lifestyle message if the audience trusts the person behind it. Trust is the missing ingredient. Harry and Meghan once had enormous trust with many people. They were seen as vulnerable, brave, and modern. But every contradiction has chipped away at that trust. They wanted privacy, then produced intimate content. They wanted independence, then relied on royal titles. They wanted reconciliation, then continued public criticism. They wanted media control, then complained when journalists reported independently. They wanted to be seen as future-focused, but kept returning to the wounds of the past. Meghan's brand cannot fully escape that history because it is built on her name, and her name is inseparable from the Sussex story. A jar of jam is never just a jar of jam when it is sold by the Duchess of Sussex during a week of royal turmoil.
And it was very interesting to me seeing Camilla Tominey of the Daily Telegraph today say, actually, this case really matters for the public, because what Prince Harry was actually trying to do was so much bigger than the Daily Mail. He was actually trying to shut down proper, genuine reporting of public figures, of politicians. He wanted to bring in this Leveson 2, the whole Hugh Grant bid to control the police because he was caught with his pants down with a prostitute in the 90s. That's what this was about. So it was actually, in some ways, so much bigger than Prince Harry.
A loaf of bread is never just bread when commentators are asking whether she needs Diana's family for renewed relevance. A lifestyle email is never just marketing when Harry is facing one of the worst public defeats of his adult life. That is the trap. The more ordinary Meghan tries to make the brand, the more extraordinary the surrounding context becomes. The public is not simply judging the product, it is judging the timing, the symbolism, the strategy, and the gap between the life being sold and the life being reported. For Harry, the trap is different but related. He cannot return to being merely a prince, and he has not fully succeeded at becoming something else. The court defeat damaged his anti-press crusader identity. The royal family does not appear ready to welcome him back. The public is increasingly skeptical of his grievances. Invictus remains valuable, but even that can be overshadowed by Sussex drama. So he sits between identities, not fully royal, not fully private, not fully independent, not fully vindicated. This is why Project Thor, whether alive, dead, exaggerated, or misunderstood, mattered so much. It represented the possibility that someone inside or near the establishment still imagined a route back. But the more Harry lashes out, the more that route narrows.
Yeah, and I think what Harry underestimates, because he doesn't understand the nuances of journalism, which, by the way, is bizarre because journalism is essential to his life as it is to mine, and always has been, and for his mother and his family. Doesn't understand that at the Daily Mail, we are highly trained and we truly believe in holding power to account and to getting to the bottom of injustices and shining a light on them for good. You know, it's not all just negative private life. You know, we're trying to do a job that's important for the world in a way.
The more Meghan's commercial world struggles, the more her renewed proximity looks opportunistic. The more the press is attacked, the more journalists defend their role. The more William sees the chaos, the less likely he is to permit any return that could affect the future monarchy. The palace may not say all this publicly. It does not need to. The pattern is visible, but underneath all those questions is a simpler one. What do Harry and Meghan actually want now? If they want privacy, they need to stop using public uncertainty as currency. If they want royal reconciliation, they need to stop briefing and attacking. If they want independent success, Meghan's business needs to stand without Diana, without Buckingham Palace, and without royal drama. If Harry wants credibility, he needs to accept that courts require evidence and that journalists are not automatically criminals because they report uncomfortable stories. Most of all, they need to choose a lane. They cannot be private citizens and royal operators at the same time. They cannot build a lifestyle brand while relying on grievance. They cannot condemn the press while using it. They cannot claim to be moving forward while constantly circling back to the same royal wounds. That is why this moment feels so revealing. Meghan's struggling brand, Harry's court defeat, Project Thor, Althorp, the Spencer connection, William's frustration, Catherine's calm public image.
Yeah, absolutely. That was made so clear. I mean, there's such camaraderie with the journalists here because we've all come through, like you, Dan. We did the hard graft. We worked so hard in our 20s, you know, as well as going to all these parties. I was also turning up for work on time all day, every day, unlike all these aristos, doing my job and learning the trade and cutting my teeth. And we're all the same here. We're all highly trained journalists. We really want to do accurate, good, poignant journalism. And we're not sloppy. And so, you just know that Paul Dacre believes that and everyone here believes that. So we felt really well supported throughout the case.
Beatrice and Eugenie's complicated positions and Charlotte Griffiths' vindication are not separate stories. They are different parts of the same larger picture. The Sussex era is entering a new phase. The old sympathy has faded. The old commercial model is tired. The old royal currency is still valuable, but harder to access. The press is less intimidated. William is less forgiving. Catherine's contrast is stronger. And Meghan's attempt to build a new identity appears, at least to critics, less convincing than the royal connection she once walked away from. Harry and Meghan may still find a path forward, but it will not come from another briefing, another symbolic trip, another jar of jam, another legal threat, or another attempt to repackage Diana's memory. It will only come from clarity. Either they truly move on, or they admit that they never really could.
They have stand-up rows, that's what I've heard over the years. But some of those relationships, they kind of thrive on that kind of argumentative, you know, jeopardy. Is it over? Is it not over?
Yeah. There's like a toxicity.
I'm afraid that's what I think Harry's stuck in, a sort of toxic mess with Meghan.